I use Markdown for just about anything I write these days. Gone are the days of working in Microsoft Word or something like that. Even Google Docs is kind of clumsy for me. Markdown at its core is like the bare bones thing you need to still sort of format content, but not necessarily make it just a pain to deal with. Like, I don't know if you've copied and pasted it into a Word document before, but it keeps the styling. And that alone makes me just boycott Word. Sadly, my clients and stuff we work with like day to day, that's kind of the way everyone is, caught up in. So I still have to deal with it, but internally, Markdown is king for me. That said, I made a resource called Lowdown for Markdown. It's on a link on webcrunch.com. I will link to that, but I'm going to do a quick screencast and basically show you what Markdown is in like 10 minutes, and hopefully you can capture the gist of it. It's not something you pick up immediately, but it is, quick to write, I would say, compared to just writing text, having to highlight it with your mouse, go click on a style in your header in the Word doc or Google Doc, whatever you're working in, and then go back to where you were and readjust from there. So Markdown, you can actually use specific editors to auto format things. I like to use a slew of them. Essentially, this is just a quick tutorial on Markdown, and if you aren't using it, I suggest you try it. It's used almost anywhere dealing with web development. So version control in particular comes to mind, GitHub, or even static site generators utilize Markdown as the way you author content, and when you push it live, it actually gets formatted based on how you built your site. So that's beneficial because there's no database to worry about. All your files are static. There's nothing that can get corrupted based on your database or crap like that. So more and more I'm drifting away from WordPress, and with that all in mind, the static site generator concept is great, but it's more or less, does it scale, that worries me. Because WordPress, obviously it could, you can do anything. I just wanted to make sure of it, and there's a lot of options out there, and knowing Markdown is something I think a modern designer or developer should probably know. If you don't, that's okay. That's what this is for. So hopefully check it out. Hopefully you dig it. Let me know if not, or if you do. And here we go. In the previous video, I mentioned a resource that I created called the Lowdown on Markdown. You can find that at web-crunch.com/resources/lowdown/markdown. I'll share that link in the description of this video, though. Essentially, this is something I made as just a free resource. You can use it to always refer to for formatting Markdown. Essentially what you need to write to create the output as you see below. So the way it works is I have categories of different content that you can do with Markdown, and essentially once it's compiled, we'll go to HTML. Obviously, working with Markdown, you don't even need a Markdown editor. It's much easier to do if you have one. My favorite one lately is called Typora. Let me see if there's a URL for it. Typora.io. Yeah, it's in beta right now. It's the first editor I've used that auto formats what you write, and I think that's super beneficial because most Markdown editors have like a writing pane, and then on the right side you can have a preview pane, and that's neat, but I'd rather see it in real time, and this one's hitting home for me. So definitely check it out. There are custom themes. I think you can even contribute if you want. A good editor to use is that. You can use a code editor, you can use just a basic text editor. I wouldn't recommend using anything like Microsoft Word or actual kind of WYSIWYG editor that already exists, those just would try to auto format and ruin your life, I think. So yeah, I would avoid those at all costs. I'm going to mainly refer to this resource simply because I've already written it, and I don't think I need to literally write this stuff for you guys in front of you, but I mean, we could start. So like Markdown Bootcamp, there is a title, and you noticed how it auto formatted, so that's native to this application. So other applications, you'll just have this hash in front of it, and that signifies an H1 tag. In HTML, there's H1 through H6, and you can do, so if you want to do like say an H3, you do 3 hashes and then heading 3, and then 4 is heading 4, and this particular theme has a different style for that. Lists, okay, unordered and ordered. Unordered, if you do plus, minus, or I think star, you get an unordered list, so you get what you would think. Ordered, obviously you just do 1 dot or 2 dot and all that. So okay, that's easy, cool. Lists. What about links? Links are kind of tricky. You can have a few parameters in them. Most are typically written in this fashion, which is the square brackets and then the parentheses. The square brackets contain the text that will actually be visible once rendered. So you'll want to do like my link. And then in the parentheses, you'll actually have the link itself. This won't be visible once rendered, I should say. In your Markdown editor, it's probably still there, but if you open your preview pane, maybe it won't be. So there's a link, cool. Now you can actually go further and do inline links with the title like this. Again, refer to this resource. It goes a little more in depth. This is trying to say this is code. There we go. A title on a link is good for accessibility. If you want to add it, you simply add quotes inside the parentheses here, and then it'll still render as this link, but if you were to hover over it in a web browser, it would show the title. If you're writing a book or something like that, which I have done, I have a book on UX that I've written that I did completely in Markdown, and it was great compared to a Word editor, which would have drove me nuts. So if you want to do a reference to something, say you have a citation or something in your document, you can do a link to that citation. So link for reference, then you can just display the reference text, if I can spell. And then you go down your page and you have that same call to that thing, text, and then you could just do Google.com. Okay, so this links to this as kind of a citation. You can add a title to according to this editor, so that's pretty neat. The same applies here if you have footnotes or something like that. Okay, what about images? An image is the same as a link, but you throw a pound in front of it, and my editor obviously will show this handy shortcut looking thing. I'm just going to grab this link and paste it in, or actually we'll just title it like animals, and then that link would go there, and we get a tiger asleep. Hopefully it's alive. Looks kind of not alive. Anyway, there's images. You can do the same reference like you did with links before. If you just add the other square bracket with the ID, go down the page, add that ID again with a colon, and the link to the actual image and all of that. So easy peasy, right? And Markdown, I would say I had it down in like 2 weeks. It takes a minute to remember the formatting, the way you need to write things to remember them, but in the end, it's so much faster than traditional Microsoft Word kind of stuff. Code, let's get into code. On my blog, I literally write like this in my WordPress I use the Jetpack plugin, and it recognizes Markdown for me. It's super useful, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But to do code, you do these backticks, 3 of them. And then in my editor, if you're using this one, it'll auto format. So it'll make a code block. You can do my element like we have on the right there. This is some CSS. We'll do Helvetica, why not? Didn't really need quotes, but Arial, sans serif. Cool. So then in this editor, again, you can tell it what kind of language it is, and it'll give you some syntax highlighting. It's kind of nice. Block quotes. Simply put a, I guess, greater than symbol. It will do that. This is a block quote. It's as easy as that. Tables by default are not supported in Markdown. They are on GitHub. I think GitHub extended them. You can format them in this such way. It's kind of tedious to write tables in Markdown, but I can see the reason to do it. If you're, interested in contributing to a repo or something on GitHub, there's a lot of tables that make sense for maybe, say, browser support or something like that. If you want to format inline, like actual text in a paragraph, for instance, you can do so by typing, for bold text, you type 2 stars or asterisks, whatever you want to call those, around text, and it will bold. If you want to make it italic, you just type 1 set and it will do that. If you want to do a strike through, you do these squigglies or whatever they are, the alternate key for where the backtick is. You need 2 to do a strike through. 2 underscores also is a bold formatter, and then 1 set is the emphasis again, so italic. Essentially that's it, guys. Again, look at this resource. It's pretty thorough. There are some things I think I've already noticed I left out, but the gist of what you use is like bold text, headings, lists, and links. Images in Markdown are useful, but you kind of need a absolute URL to an image. Otherwise you need to create a folder, have the images within it, and then share that folder wherever it is. That's typically how these static site generators are created. So there's just this internal reference to these files, so you always have that stuff handy. Again, reference this. I documented it pretty hard. I'll share the links, and as well as my favorite editor link here so far. I've used countless numbers of them. There was one called Whiskey I used for a while. I even used Sublime Text for a while, even Atom, the code editor, for a while as well. There's really no wrong answer. This one I like in particular because it auto formats, so I don't have to have, like I said before, a preview pane open, so it takes up more space. I hope you like this. If it's useful to you, please like or subscribe. I would appreciate it. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to comment. I'll be glad to answer those. And stay tuned for more videos. I'm going to keep these coming.